Kana on pole, Shenjie in second, Nigel lining up third, Freeware in fourth, Luktra fifth position, Yoda in sixth for Red Bull, Zamis in the Racing Point seventh, Swifty in eighth, Hyper in ninth, MRL Henners in the McLaren, rounding off the top 10 with Liam, Wavy, Wizard, Gadwin, Robbo, the top 15, Extreme, Fubar, Energy, Alpha, and I do believe there was one more I missed at the back of the grid there. Max Inkster.
Now here we go. Another test for the game. Can we get everyone loaded in? Issue free.
Issue free. Yes, that is the key, of course. If you are just tuning in, we're about to get set for 100% Hungary here on F1 2020. My name is Stryfium, and joining me is Unicorn. And wow, I am beyond pumped for this one, given the rain is coming.
Man, and realistically, this is the first sort of league racing we're seeing outside of Austria. We've been at Austria for what's been almost a month, really.
Yeah.
So it's.
I have I'm driving in a league race this evening after this one, actually, and it is Austria. So I haven't quite had my end of it yet, but soon enough. As we saw Austria last week for the 100% here on F1 2020, the week before on F1 2019, and then the week before that for a special exhibition with F1 driver Nicholas Latifi. All of these drivers now on the formation lap. Only 2 drivers opting to go on a compound different from the softs here. That's Total Wizard in 13th and Extreme jumping onto hard compound tires. What do you think about that, Unicorn? Very interesting.
I mean, tires here, we just had the Amazon sort of powered graphic there, and that was suggesting a 2 or a 3 stop, but I have a sneaking suspicion that with weather changes, that you've got to imagine that it's whatever your strategy is right now, it's gonna change by the end of the race for sure. Right, so I don't think the hard tyres are necessarily a bad option. I'm surprised there's no mediums. To be honest, I feel like a medium will be a good safe bet. You get a decent amount of pace. You'd be faster than those on the hards. Obviously a bit slower than those on the softs, but you've got more flexibility. If, you know, the rain comes just after that lap 19, the graphics there think you'd need to pit off the softs. If the rain comes, you know, somewhere in lap 25-ish, you'd still have the opportunity to switch straight to the inters from your starting tyres. So I'm a little bit surprised with the sea of red tyres we've got there, but I'll have to see how it pans out for the different drivers.
Whoa, and we've had 2 disqualifications as a result of what on earth?
They're on the grid.
They are on the grid. I don't know if it's going to load them back in here, if that was just a light tap, and that would be very weird if they are unable to actually begin this race. I was just going to say, everything seems to be behaving as per normal. Okay, and they are going to be able to start. It is lights out. We are off racing here in Hungary. Kana has dropped down on the timing tower. Blue flags are coming up on screen right now, but he is away down into turn 1.
It looks like most people have got out of turn 1 scratch-free. And someone who seems to have taken very much advantage of the start is Alpha S, and the timing tower going nuts. And that's a Mercedes off. Is that Luktra? It is.
Luktra.
Kana as well.
Extreme is off. Swifty is off. Nobody has been terminally retired as of yet. We have a Vsc deployment now here on lap 1. That timing tower is absolutely all over the place.
I think it may have just been the sheer number of people changing positions. But I was about to say that Alpha had a very good start. He still had a very good start. He's up 9 places. He's already up into 10th place. Wavy's just received a drive-through penalty for speeding under the VSC. And he's had an excellent start up until that point. He started 12th, he's now 6th. As Shenjie crosses the line to start what is apparently lap 3 of the race. Which, I believe it's lap 2. So,
we are
a little bit confused.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what has happened here in this race. Kana has apparently jumped into 2nd position, but is in the pit lane at the moment. So, well, unfortunately we have some bugs we're working through here, but currently in lead of this race is Shenjie on circuit, followed by Nigel, Freeware, Zamis, Yoda, Wavy, Hyper, Alpha, Fubar, Total Wizard, Gadwin, Max Inkster. So basically the entire grid currently is correct, with the exception of the McLaren racer currently leaving the pit lane with the Williams following him. That's extreme. So I'm not too sure how Kana jumped up into the lead of the race somehow. And there has been a retirement. That is the racing point of Alpha.
I think I've really hit him with the commentator's curse there, just as I was saying he had a great start, and now I'm not quite sure what's happened to the racing point there. But it looks like something's happened to him coming out of turn 9. And he's facing the wrong way. It looks like a weird right might be missing.
Very interesting race, of course, so far, and it's very hard to keep track of where these drivers are on the tower, as the timing tower hasn't completely updated yet. I think it has now. Shenjie is now rightfully in the lead of the race. Nigel following him, and I think we are back to somewhat some normality here. And even the tires seem to be behaving.
It didn't count in the last lap as lap 3. It stuck to lap 3.
So Codemasters seems to be doing something live for us here. Like, what is going on with this?
Whatever happened with Kana that tricked the game into thinking he was in first, he obviously crossed the line in the pits. And it was like, yeah, you know what, he's just gone on to lap 3. But I guess...
Okay.
I'm interested to see what it thinks his lap time was.
Bugs aside, let's get to some action. We have Gadwin currently in 9th position right now. He is hunting down Total Wizard. Total Wizard in 8th for Ferrari. Coming through into Sector 3 now is the Red Bull. And down into Turn 1 is the most ideal overtaking opportunity here. Now, these drivers are going to have DRS here coming into this straight section. Is Gadwin going to be able to make a move? Fubar ahead in 7th.
Robbo's just gone up the inside into turn 13 and just about makes it stick around the last corner. And now Max Ingstrom there in the Haas, a little bit under threat from the Ferrari of energy behind him there, but he's defended it into turn 1.
Now that everything has somewhat calmed down, you can see the times are starting to get closer. Everybody, I think, has a bit of a clear picture on who they need to overtake. Henner's in 14th right now, under threat from the Williams of Liam.
Yeah, and we're seeing what we've seen in the last couple of races as well, where you just sort of get these pockets of drivers at different points in the track. We've got 3 cars battling out for 7th. Fubar, he's up 10 places from where he started, but he's got a very hard-charging Ferrari in the form of Wizard, and also Gadwin's behind him. Wizard there is one of the only drivers on the hard compound tyres, though, at the moment, or at least he started on them. Everyone else who's had to pit has opted for the medium compound tyres, by the looks of it.
That's odd that his tires are showing 0 laps. Of course, we saw him start the race on those. Like you said, he is going for a move up the inside into turn 1. Is he going to get this done? He is out in front of Fubar. Gadwin behind Fubar now, having a look. Not able to do anything. Total Wizard has made the move for now. Fubar coming back at him. Gadwin on Fubar. Fubar misses his braking a little bit there. Down into turns 2 and 3 now. He's having to deal with Gadwin alongside him. That's Gadwin into turn 4. Gadwin and him wheel to wheel. That's Fubar off wide. Gadwin has spun round. He's gotten things back under control, but Robbo has caught up to the pack now. Coming into the chicane. Is Gadwin going to get a good exit here? He needs to make something happen with Fubar, or this Alfa Romeo is going to have a good enough position to pick him off soon enough. You can just see Wizard.
Energy management as well. He's been absolutely drained by not only Wizard, but now he's defending Gadwin. Gadwin has much more ERS than him, but as does Robbo, who's just chilling behind them, waiting for a moment to strike, and he's currently sitting at almost a full battery of ERS as they are approaching once more that start-finish straight. Gadwin a little bit wide through the final turn. There we go then. Rear wings are open.
Max Inkster fighting with Energy. Energy has made the move. Gadwin up the inside on Fubar. Safely into 8th position here. Is Fubar going to be able to make a run back at him, though? Robbo not close enough to make anything happen just yet. Total Wizard is pulling away a significant gap here, Unicorn, on those hard compound tires. These softs, I think, may have been a major gamble for everybody that is on them. Is the rain going to be coming that soon?
Yeah, also, Fubar and Robbo both are carrying...
Oh, there's a big incident. That's Energy off at turn 4. I'm not too sure what happened. Max Inkster was awfully close going into the turn there. Wavy went through in the Renault, and that is the Ferrari of Energy off outside of turn 4. He's looking to try and get things back going, letting the fast-moving cars by. He is going to come out of that situation in 16th position. No safety car deployed as a result, but that looked like it was a very, very violent crash. That's going to be Yoda now in the Red Bull. He's jumped into the pit lane here. It looks like he's going to be getting off of those softs. What is he going to be jumping on? Looks like a set of mediums.
Meanwhile, we're seeing it again. Gadwin now pulling away from Fubar. Fubar seems to be struggling for pace with that damage, and he's got Robbo there with equal damage as they get joined by Yoda, who's just come out of the pit lane on those fresh mediums. His DRS is open. He's come out right between the two who are battling for 8th position. Yoda's going to want to clear Fubar as quickly as possible here.
Yoda, he came out right wheel to wheel with Robbo there, through into turn 1. Now Yoda up into turn 4. He gets out in front of Fubar there. Wow, what a very, very neat and tidy piece of handiwork that was on the Mercedes.
But further down, we're seeing a very similar overtake in between Hennes and Lucha. Hennes has managed to defend 14th place from Lucha, but it's very close between these two. Almost causing an incident, but both of them smart enough to be able to avoid them. Freeware joins Yoda and becoming one of the first front runners to pit. Presumably, he's going to replicate the switch to mediums. He is indeed.
Lucha, I dare say I've seen him in Hungary racing before here for MRL, and turn 1's where it's going to happen. I've seen him make some very, very daring moves. Or is it going to be into the final turn? Wheel to wheel there for a minute. He's showing a lot of pace. Light love tap there on the rear of the McLaren. DRS now. Overtake is on for the Mercedes. Henry tries to break slipstream, moves off to the inside. That's going to be Lucha through with ease, it would seem. He had so much speed, but Henner's sticking with him. But dare I say, he's lost out on turn 1 there. Lucha with the DRS down into turn 2 now. Has made that move for now. Both drivers on the same compound tires at the moment. Yoda has pulled into 7th position. Freeware came out just ahead of Yoda, it would seem. And now both of them are going to be on the medium compound tires. Yoda a lap older than Freeware's tires, of course. Fubar and Wavy, looks like they've had an exchange of positions. Fubar has dropped into 10th position. Robbo still unable to secure an overtake on Fubar, and he has actually dropped back from where he was running in 10th earlier.
I've been watching Yoda here. Like you correctly guessed, Freeway had just popped out of the pits ahead of him. Yoda passed his teammate Gadwin as well just before that happened, as both of them put a little bit of pressure on Total Wizard here. But it seems to me that these medium tyres have got an obscene amount of pace compared to the softs as Freeway goes up the inside of the Ferrari. He's still...
That was just a clinic on an inside overtake through turn 2 there, I have to say. That was very neatly done by the AlphaTauri there. Yoda, he's looking to fight with Wizard as well, except he's made it through. He's just following that AlphaTauri's every move. Dare I say, they're going to train each other along for some time now. Wizard, he's going to be feeling those hards right now versus those mediums, so not much he can do in that position. That's just the strategy he's running. He's looking to go long until that wet weather eventually hits. So it's a solid it's a safe strategy from the Ferrari squad right now.
Yeah, and part of me wants to speculate that maybe Yoda and Freeware have had a little of chat with Jeff there and have got an estimate on how long it is until we see that initial rain, and have decided, you know what, I want to get off these softs, they're past their prime, and the same can be said for my mediums by the time it'll be Inters that are the fastest tyre on track. So potentially a little bit risky. They're putting their faith in the game's weather calculations, but at the same time,
Robbo, he's going for it. He made a dive on Fubar into turn 1. He is not able to secure himself ahead of the Mercedes just yet, though. Is it going to happen into turn 2? He has the DRS. He's on the outside. What kind of traction is he going to get? He doesn't get the response he needs to make a move here, but they're still into turn 4. Fubar looks to have defended the move for now. We'll see who's quicker through here into turn 5. Yeah, Fubar, good defense there. Robbo maybe a little too hasty on the attempt to make the move. He's running low on his battery, as is Fubar, though. Fubar could be struggling here on the soft compound stint. Meanwhile, Lutra looking at Max Ingster.
Yeah, Max here has not only just been overtaken by Lutra there, he was also overtaken by Liam not too long ago through turn 1. He seems to be struggling as well on those soft tyres. So part of me is wondering why anyone is sticking with them.
Yoda on Freeware into turn 1. Is Freeware going to get the switchback done? They're wheel to wheel right now. Beautiful helicopter shot into turn 2. Yoda out in front on the inside right now. Freeware on the outside. Looked like he had a good jolt of traction there. Yoda squeezing him a little bit round turn 3. Up into turn 4. Yoda's out in front. The AlphaTauri coming through behind him. That's Yoda into 5th position right now, coming up through turn 5. Well done. Nice tight racing from both of them. Could have been a little bit more space left for that AlphaTauri coming through 3rd turn there. But hard racing if I've ever seen it, and a lot of fun to watch from that helicopter view as well.
Yeah, and there's a certain amount of, you know, there will be contact at some point, inevitably in racing, but you've got to know your limits.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Unicorn. Liam, along the inside of Robbo, just coming through the chicane in Sector 2. He's now into 11th position, and Lutra is gaining on the Alfa Romeo as well. He goes around the outside into the long right-hander. Very nicely done from both of those racers. Very clean, and you were hitting the nail on the head earlier, that's for sure. These mediums are much quicker than the softs right now. All of these soft runners are absolutely feeling it on those tires right now. These front runners, Shenjay, Nigel, Zamis, Hyper, they have got to be screaming for new tires. Gadwin, Waby, Fubar. The pit window is open.
Yeah, Robbo's coming in as well. He's responding to what he's just experienced there. We got a few moves going on into turn 1. Fubar in the middle of Liam and his teammate Lucia behind him. He's still on those softs, sandwiched between 2 mediums. They're fairly old mediums, but mediums nonetheless, as Lucia a little bit shaky there out of turn 2. Now on the run down to turn 4. No moves, but I think I'm starting to see the first few drops of rain here on the Hungaroring.
I'm seeing what you're seeing, Unicorn. That is rain coming through Sector 2 right now in the chicane. Lutra is definitely going to want to get ahead of Fubar before either of them get into that pit lane. Fubar struggling with traction there on the exit. Lutra just zips by. A lot of speed coming out of that Mercedes right now compared to his teammate with that difference in tires. Henner's on the medium compound tires. He's caught up with Max Inkster, who's on the softs as we saw before. His teammate Kana, who we saw have an interesting issue by turn 3 earlier, is behind him. And Max Inkster is going into the pit lane now. Is he going to jump onto Inters early here? It's going to be quite a gamble.
Somehow Zamas is closed about half a second in the last lap as he slides out of the Sector 2 chicane. Luckily he managed to catch it and not repeat what he did last week, but that's dropped him.
Meanwhile, Kana made the move on his teammate into turn 1, into 13th position. Henry going a little bit deep and wide through turn 1 there. Could be that he's already feeling a little bit of loss of traction given the wet conditions. Kana had the DRS, of course. Coming up through turn 4, though, looks like they have a little bit more pace in that lead McLaren right now. Henner's not pulling as much out of the car right now. Struggling through turn 5. Now, you can see Max Inkster did jump in to the pit lane for those intermediate compound tires. Could be the strat of the race. They're going to be slow for a lap, maybe 2 here. But it is a decent lap round. And, well, the rain's going to be heavier in some areas. It's going to take a little bit for these conditions to get quite to that intermediate optimal condition. Total Wizard's in. He's going on for intermediates as well.
I think a lot of the problem a lot of these drivers here are suffering right now is the fact that they've tried to get enough out of these soft tires to make it worth the switch to intermediates now. And what's happened here is that we've got to the point where if you were going for that 2-stop strategy, this would be the lap, at least according to the powered graphics in the game, that you would be switching to that first set of medium compound tires. However, it's starting to rain. If you switch to mediums now, you're going to have to pit in 1 or 2 laps for intermediates anyway. So the debate these guys have got, do I try and get another lap out of my old soft switch? Now aren't performing the best as we see Nigel slide around the penultimate corner. The DRS has been disabled, and that's usually a good indicator to switch to the intermediates, and it looks like it's getting very slippery out there for those on the slicks.
On board right now with Hyper, who pitted for fresh mediums. He's just past Wavy. Both drivers, though, struggling in these wet conditions. And like you said, DRS has been disabled. And if F1 2019, and that is... what issue has that been now?
He's been disqualified. I'll check the race director. What for?
Looks like there's been a disqualification of some kind coming from Zamus's end. That is very bizarre. But a lot of drivers struggling on these dry compound tires. Now Shenjie, the race leader, has come in for the intermediate compounds. He's already making his way through turn 3 right now. Meanwhile, Nigel, 7 seconds behind him. Yoda in 3rd. 16.7 seconds behind Nigel. It looks like Shenjie and Nigel just flying away there in the front. Freeware in 4th position, currently gaining on Yoda. We saw them fighting earlier.
So someone who is going to be hurt by all this is Henners. He's going to get double stacked. He's going to lose at least 1 or 2 seconds from that there, having to wait behind his teammate Kana in the pit lane for the intermediate tyres. Obviously, he couldn't really stay out, but...
So an Extreme has had an off as well. And Zamus has now hosted the MRL channel for 43 viewers, I do believe. Thank you, Mr. Zamus. Not entirely sure what happened to you there here in the Hungarian race.
Yeah, I can't find a explanation there. Oh, there's a safety car out. As Robbo has decided not to pit, which I find rather puzzling, to be perfectly honest. He's on 2-lap old mediums, but they're not going to be doing him any favours right now whatsoever in these conditions.
Safety car on lap 16. I'm sure there's a few drivers on the grid right now that are thankful for that one, as things are going to tighten up. I'm sure it'll be at least 2 to 3 laps before we see racing resume for green flag racing.
Freeware's just coming to the pit lane. I'm not sure if that's for damage or not. Let's have a look. Is there any front wing going on? Robbo's just received a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. I was just saying how he hasn't pitted, and Freeware's just gone for what looks like fresh tyres. It's going to cost him 1 place, I believe, maybe 2, depending on when Wavy comes out here. I think Freeware's safe from the Renault. He is. So he's lost one place, with his mentality, I believe, being that he's going to have 1 lap fresher intermediates.
Thank you very much for the raid, Zamis.
It's going to take a while for these guys to form up under safety car. So I expect to see it out for at least a couple of laps. Now, it'd be interesting to see here. Is Robbo coming in to serve his drive-through, or is he coming in to get a fresh set of intermediates? I don't believe he can do both.
He's definitely going to be getting a new set of intermediates there, Unicorn, because you are not able to serve a drive-through penalty under safety car conditions. So he will need to wait until green flag racing again and come into the pit lane once again to serve that penalty, most definitely.
Yeah, his strategy here has really messed up his race completely. He wasn't doing too badly at the start of this race, but now, as Extreme retires from the session, what's happened there? He's had an off near the end of Sector 2. He's just in the barrier at the side of the track there, around turn 11. I'm assuming that's just a slip due to the wet conditions. So already, despite it only being under safety car, we're seeing these wet conditions being a little bit challenging for our drivers here.
Makes for some excitement with the safety car, though. The restart's just going to give us an entire new outlook on how things are going to go in this race. Everybody's on the intermediate compound tires now.
Yeah, and I think Freeware might have had a pretty good idea to get those fresher intermediates on under the safety car. He is now sitting a little bit advantageous compared to everyone else, but like you said, the restart is going to bunch everyone back up together. We were seeing fairly large gaps form, but we've got to see how everyone competes going down into turn 1. It's going to be a very long run for everyone here, because the safety car comes in at the pit lane and then it's restarted by the leader. So hopefully everyone's able to stay composed, stay in control of their cars.
I do believe Swifty at the moment as well, currently in an effort to try and unlap himself from this race. Maybe we'll see him try and overtake that safety car down the pit straight. I saw him overtake Nigel and Shenjay just a few moments ago.
Swifty's someone who definitely seems to have the pace in this race, obviously caught up in that lap 1 incident, but I thought he was battling with Zamas and I believe Nigel, but it turned out he was just unlapping himself. Swifty's been disqualified for ignoring a yellow flag.
It says he's been disqualified. Has he actually been disqualified? Yes, he has. So Swifty, in an effort to unlap himself under safety car conditions, has been effectively disqualified from this race, which is not something that I would have expected to happen, as he should be allowed to unlap himself. I am very thankful we are learning about the game right now as opposed to when official league racing begins. The more time we get here in spectator mode, the better.
For sure, I'm still baffled by that. Obviously, the safety car was already in full swing, and maybe that had something to do with it. You know, it wasn't where people are just allowed to unlap themselves at the start, but still, I'm pretty sure he's entitled to do what he just did, but the game thinks otherwise, so it'll be interesting to see what he says after the race as to why he thinks that was the case, but from my point of view, I don't see what he did wrong there.
Well, I do believe he is allowed, as far as, you know, true to sport rules, you are allowed to unlap yourself. So it's very unfortunate that that has happened, and it looks like we've had another major shift on the grid here as Wavy went down. There's some debris coming off of a Renault. That is Wavy.
Yeah, Max just received a 5-second penalty for whatever caused that debris. The game considered it a severe collision between the two. Whether that was or was not the case, I didn't see it, and the game so far has been quite liberal with its penalties under safety cars from what I've experienced, so potentially
it's very, very unfortunate that we are seeing Swifty and Zamis out of this race right now as a result of being disqualified for things that were out of their control. Not entirely sure what happened with Extreme. I don't know if it was a crash that ended his race or not. Energy, not entirely sure what happened to him as well in Alpha. Just unfortunate that they were unable to finish this race. It is a long race. We're only 19 laps through it here in the Hungaroring. And it has been, up until this point, quite intense, if I'm being honest, with some of the overtaking moves we've seen. Not all of the overtakes have been happening where I would have expected in turn 1, which is always nice to see, some risks being taken. And there hasn't really been any clear, you know, one-on-one issues as far as collisions, as far as the race has gone thus far. But, you know, knock wood, there's still 50 laps remaining.
Yeah, we've definitely seen some bold moves. We had that battle between, I believe, Yoda and Freeware earlier, which resulted in what could have quite easily been a collision through turn 4, but both of them using all of their skill to just keep that clean and entertaining. There we are, the safety car is in this lap, race control just to put out that. But yeah, we've definitely seen that the drivers are getting to grips with, you know, the new game. For a lot of people, I think 2020 is probably the first game that they're going to fully play through in terms of league racing and stuff. Freeware's just received a 5-second penalty for a severe collision, but Gadwin's behind him, so that's a little bit confusing there, but we'll get ready for the restart, and I'll let you take the reins here, Striff.
Well, we're on board here with Shenjie, except a rear view shot as he is the first driver and the de facto safety car until he crosses the line, setting the pace for this grid. He is full throttle down, overtake engaged, and he is already pulling away from Nigel here. Into turn 1, I don't think we'll see any major moves just yet. But I have been wrong before.
Wavy and Hennes are already side by side, and that's a little bit further down the grid. But Hennes up the inside, and it looks like that McLaren has made the move already. Liam and Fubar as well. Liam's just got past the Mercedes.
Looks like he may have caught Fubar napping there. Fubar on that inside. Liam just coasted through on his outer right. Meanwhile, Freeware on the rear of Total Wizard at the moment.
And what we're seeing here is potentially drivers' first, you know, example of close car-to-car racing in the wet here in 2020. But everything stayed clean so far as Max Instrom goes past Kana, and he's now going to be under pressure from Hennes. Henry in that McLaren seems to be very comfortable in these wet conditions off the restart.
Freeware following behind Total Wizard. Total Wizard is leading a train of cars in this midfield right now. I saw Gadwin poke out there. Lutra looking at Gadwin as well. Hyper in the mix. Liam Fubar all a part of this train behind Total Wizard right now. Freeware is going to be the first driver, I think, to have a crack at the Ferrari driver in 4th position. Down into turn 1, this is going to be the first full lap where we get a true sense of what the lap times are in these wet conditions. Everybody on these intermediate compound tires. Total Wizard very tight to the inside through turn 1 there. Freeware sticking with him well. Meanwhile, Gadwin having to defend against Lutra at the moment. Everybody in that train having somebody to look at both in front of them and behind them. And I have to say, in wet weather conditions, that is very, very intense.
Yeah, it's a daunting prospect, because if something goes wrong with the two up the front, you know, they get into a collision, then everyone else has got to scramble to avoid them. In dry conditions, that's a problem. In wet conditions, that's potentially a catastrophe, because you're not going to be able to slow your car down nearly as well. You're just going to risk an aquaplane, and if you've got cars spinning over the track, especially in a train scenario like this, because not only is there this 6-car train, I think it is, you've also got a 4-car train not too far down the road from them fighting for 11th place.
And I have no doubt in my mind, once those drivers behind Max Inkster get through, Kana now looking at him coming through these last few turns of the lap. I have a feeling we're going to see moves coming into turn 1 here. Both of these McLarens in 12th and 13th are itching to go. This grid has tightened up massively in these wet conditions.
Oh, Total Wizard very wide out of the final corner. That's going to cost him in the run down to turn 1. I should think Freeware here. He's looking up the inside. Total Wizard blocks it. And now Gadwin and Lutra are side by side as well. A little bit sideways on exit from Freeware, but it looks like everyone's managed to retain position. Here goes Gadwin looking up the outside into turn 2. Not making the move, and instead getting pressured by Lutra. Lutra with an excellent poacher's overtake there. He's really just snuck through in the Mercedes there. Gadwin looked like he was on to take 5th, and then instead dropped back down to 7th place here. Meanwhile, Freeware looking around the outside of Total Wizard in the long right-hander that is turn 5. But other than Lutra, everyone's retained position for now. But his teammate Fubar looking to try and make moves on Hyper, but that's not gonna bode well for the chicane. He's backed out of it.
A very intense race. There's an issue. That's Lutra into Freeware, and they are spun up in the middle of that train. Max Inkster's through. Kana's through now. Freeware seems to have gotten things under control just ahead of Henry. Now he's on the rear of the McLaren in 10th. Not entirely sure what happened between the AlphaTauri and Mercedes there, but that is Total Wizard comfortably in 4th still. Liam in 5th position for Williams. Gadwin in 6th, and Hyper is in 7th with Fubar in 8th. Max Inkster 9th. So that was a big shakeup. Lutra is into the pit lane. He's getting a new front wing on, and it looks like some fresh intermediate compound tires as well. So the rain isn't going to be stopping anytime soon. Although the raindrops that we see in the pit lane right now are not that heavy. And there goes Robbo coming down the pit straight. So he's going to get dropped into the back of this race. You hate to see it, Unicorn, after what a tight battle it was. Finally getting out in front of Gadwin as well. Just to get tangled with the AlphaTauri. Very unfortunate for them. Now Freeware with a mountain to climb. We're going to have to take a look at the front end of that AlphaTauri in just a moment to check for damage. Max Inkster seems to be the next target on his list.
Yeah, picking up on Gadwin again. He seems to be struggling in these wets. He's not necessarily slipping and sliding, but his pace doesn't seem to be there. He's now the leader here of this train. And Hyper looked up the inside into turn 1, but on exit just got very sideways. It was a bit of an ambitious move. So Gadwin's managed to hold on to P6, but I don't know how long he's going to be able to hold on to that title. But further down the list, Freeware now and Max Ingstrom going at it through the penultimate turn. Freeware's just come out ahead, but he's got the outside line going through the final turn. The Haas up the inside, not quite getting the traction it needs, and he slots nicely behind the AlphaTauri, and they've got two hungry-looking McLarens behind them as well.
Meanwhile, Hyper on the inside of the Red Bull. That's Gadwin in turn one. Is Hyper going to make that move stick? It looks like he has. Very daring from Hyper. Now into 6th position, ahead of the Finn driver. That's Gadwin, of course, in the Red Bull, and I think that's Fubar, who has the beautiful view of that exchange in 8th position in that Mercedes right now.
So I might have just discovered the source of Gadwin's problems. Obviously, you just saw Hyper successfully undertake the move that he tried one lap prior, but Gadwin is missing a front right end plate on his Red Bull there, so that might be the answer to where his pace has seemingly gone in the almost the midsection of this race. We're coming up to that point.
Liam, sorry to interrupt you, Unicorn has now caught up to Total Wizard. Full stop here coming through Sector 2. They're just crossing that split now into Sector 3, and you can see the time difference, less than half a second at the moment as they come into the penultimate turn. I think we're going to see Liam have a go here on the Ferrari into turn 1. It makes sense. Hyper following right along with him in that Haas, looking for an opportunity as well.
Yeah, and it really, qualifying like we thought, really wasn't very useful in terms of what we saw here in the race. And Gadwin is in the pits. Is he going to replace that broken front wing? Looks like he's serving a 5-second penalty. He is serving that front wing change as well, so he's going to be stopped for a long time here, and he's going to lose out hugely because of that stop.
Liam not pulling the trigger just yet on Total Wizard there, biding his time. He was very close through sectors 2 and 3 last lap around. We'll have to see if he can keep up that consistency here.
Ooh! Sorry to interrupt, but Max there, he's just been clipped from behind by Henners, who's lost his front left end plate. Very tight racing. There was still a 4-car wide train. It looks like Henners just let Max pass there as sort of an apology for that incident. But there were four in a line in a long train, and Henners just being a bit braver under braking into turn 4, and his wing there has just clipped the back of that Haas.
That's very unfortunate between the McLaren and the Haas drivers. Meanwhile, the train is still going in this midfield. Total Wizard is the conductor. Liam looking to take things out of his hands. Coming through this final turn of the lap. What kind of exit are these drivers going to have? That's the Williams. A little bit of oversteer. Twice he had to try and correct it there. No DRS in these conditions, of course, but he does have overtake at his disposal on the outside. Both of these drivers not able to make anything happen. Oh, and there's a big snap of oversteer coming out of turn 1, and he gets back on circuit. Hyper is in AI right now. I am absolutely shocked that Haas in AI mode was able to react out of the way of that Williams and come out unscathed. But you can see Liam dropping back, trying to get things back under control. Freeware is into 8th position, which is where he's landed, and after unfortunately coming together with Luketra, I believe. Luketra all the way in 13th. So Freeware definitely came out unscathed compared to Luketra in that situation.
And I know you were saying that the Haas of Hyper, in the AI mode there, but from the incidents we've had caused by this rain, none of them have been terminal so far, apart from potentially extreme under the safety car. But the drivers are recovering pretty well from these issues, as it looks like Freeware might be attempting a move at the inside of the Williams of Liam. He's not going to get it done in the penultimate turn, around the final turn. Again, he's not going to be able to get the move done, but he's definitely got the pace on that Williams, it looks like, and potentially a better exit as well as they go down into turn 1. But the focus shifts to Fubar, who's looking at the inside of the Haas. That is Hyper there. The Mercedes a bit slower around the corner, both very composed, but Fubar not making it past on this occasion. And Liam successfully defends his 7th position for the moment from Freeware. Freeware still not giving up hope on that position either.
Ooh, that's freeware. Not cutting, but he takes that inside curbing, gets through on Liam just before they get into turn 4. Now they're coming through turn 5. He's already cut up to the rear of the Mercedes. That's Fubar ahead. Now it's looking like it's going to be a German versus German duel here in the midfield between these two. Hyper, the Dane, in 5th, falling behind Total Wizard. Total Wizard has just been in 4th for what seems like forever now. But in reality, it's only really been, I want to say, a good, 10 laps. We saw him on the hards earlier as well, and I have to say his strategy and his driving right now is doing very, very well for him. He's in a solid race position right now, and everybody's just looking to have a piece of him, and he's been very good to keep things stuck in 4th position for the time being. That's Hyper, though, having a look. Coming through that final turn.
A yellow flag briefly flashed up in sector 3 there, but I didn't think much of it. I snapped back down to the grid, and there's a McLaren missing his entire front wing, and he's crashed on pit entry. That's a VSC. Combination of rain and a lack of downforce there has just cost Henners his race.
Oh, that is
such
the
a light
last
tap
thing
as
you want to
well.
hear.
Problem there was he had no front wing to sort of block that contact with the wall. Even though he was going pretty much as slowly as he could, nothing was going to stop him from losing that front left tyre there. Unfortunately, he was having a good race as well in that McLaren. Plenty of battles for him, but come to an end unfortunately for him.
Max has just taken a drive-through penalty for speeding under the VSC. I'm sure that's what you were looking at, because that is extremely, extremely unfortunate for him. In 10th position as well.
He actually got 2, I think.
No.
I believe he got 2 drive-through penalties.
That would be even more unfortunate for the Haas driver.
Unless he received a penalty elsewhere this lap, on the race director he does have 2 penalties here listed under lap 28, so that could be his battle here over. Obviously he's a little bit far behind this train already, but he's got no hopes of catching it with 2 drive-throughs. He's coming in now for the first one. Meanwhile, this train of cars, no one jostling for position through turn 1 this time around, but the Haas of Hyper. He's very lucky to have recovered that. He nearly ended his race there, exiting turn 1 very sideways on entry into the grass. I'm astounded he managed to catch that slide. If he's got his on board from that, I would love to see that.
Fubar, I'm sure, wanting a piece of what happened there. He's very close behind Hyper right now.
I'm amazed Hyper didn't lose a position. That was a huge slide, but then again, you have the driver behind, you don't want to entangle yourself with a sideways Haas.
No, you definitely do not. Considering what we have seen over the past few years, that is definitely not something you want to tangle with at all.
That's another Haas. That's nice. Ingstrom has just caused the yellow flag. He lost the position to Gadwin, I think, there. And it's not been his race so far.
Speaking of not been his race, Freeware currently in 7th position. He's dropped back 3 positions from where he started. He's now in 7th. Fubar is up 11 slots in his current running position, which is a very nice, sizable amount of positions gained, as well as Total Wizard is up 9. Max Singster in 12th he's up 8 positions as well. Kana has been the biggest drop, 8 positions for Kana.
Yeah, and Robbo and Wavy, those two are looking pretty side by side as Wavy gets a much better exit out of turn 13. Around the outside, of the final corner, and he's got the move done before they've even entered the start-finish straight. Just ahead of them, Max has just served his second drive-through penalty there, I believe, and he's going to come out just ahead of them. Literally, he's side by side. Wavy now fighting around the outside of another corner for a position, and Wavy comes out on top there, and now Max is under threat from the Alfa Romeo of Robbo there.
Now, one key thing to note here that we haven't even had an opportunity to think about, Unicorn, is that this race, for all of you tuning in, is not staying wet. It is not staying wet. This race is going to be going back to dry conditions. So these drivers have had to go from dry to wet, changeable conditions, and then it's going to be going back to dry. So it's going to be an entirely different variable for these drivers to determine when is best to switch off of these wet tires. Not just getting on them, but now they need to figure out when they're supposed to get off of these wet compound tires. As the rain is still coming down, we are just approaching the halfway mark in this race. The gaps are absolutely tight right now. Meanwhile, Hyper in turn 3, wheel to wheel with Total Wizard. Total Wizard still out in front into turn 4. Looks like he's made that move stick, but that's Hyper into the rear of the Ferrari coming out of the turn. A little bit of a tap. The front wing missing that front right end plate. That's going to cost Hyper some downforce, that's for sure. Total Wizard now having to defend against Freeware. Freeware in 6th position. Fubar in 7th. Liam in 8th. Kane in 9th. And Lutra rounding off your top 10.
I don't know what camera angle you were watching that from, but that incident in turn 4 just caused a domino effect hugely down the grid. Obviously, these guys are in effectively a train here, and you had Total Wizard and Freeware battling, and they came together, and then you've got Liam, who tried to brake to avoid it. He had the back of, I think, Lutra, and I think there was at least 2 or 3 end plates that came flying off of cars there. But you could see everyone trying to brake, and everyone was trying to outbrake everyone, but that was costly through there as Fubar and Liam come into the pits, presumably for new front wings.
Very interesting race here so far. You saw there on screen the gap to leaders. Look at the stops as well. Some drivers have stopped only once in this race, but I don't believe that is currently correct, as I know Max Singster has stopped more than once. So unfortunately, my telemetry on the spectator end of things not entirely up to date, as this battle is still unfolding in the midfield in this fight for 4th position. Hyper is now the conductor of this train. Total Wizard 5th, Freeware in 6th, and the McLaren of Kana has actually dropped off, but is under threat from Lutra at the moment. And Robbo, I do believe, in 14th. Looking to have a move on Max Inkster soon enough here.
Going back to tires, someone who's in very good stead is Lutra. His inters are only 8 laps old. Gadwin behind him is way off the pace, but he's only 6 FO. Whereas everyone ahead of them, they went from their starting compound tyre onto the intermediates, and they've stuck there pretty much, depending on what their strategy was. So Lutra could see to be set to gain some positions if people have to replace their old intermediate tyres. But as you were saying just a moment ago, it all depends on how long this rain hangs around here in Hungary, because how long you can take a set of intermediate tyres, you know,
it can be driver dependent. That is the big question, isn't it? Because when you think about it, soft compound tires here in Hungary, they do not last long. We've already had that, proven here in this race. Now all of these drivers, they're approaching, 18, 17 laps on these intermediate compound tires. I think if this rain is going to keep up as is, we're going to see another tire change to intermediates, plus another tire change back to dries when the time is right. Then again, they all have race engineers and the information from Jeff that we do not have here, and they could be getting told something completely different.
Yeah, and we were seeing that, you know, a 2-stop or a 3-stop is what they were recommending in the dry, let alone in the wet. So I think we could be seeing our drivers make 4 or 5 pit stops here easily. So we'll have to see how it all pans out. Meanwhile, this battle for 5th is still raging on. All 4 of these cars lined up fairly neatly here, but they've got Hyper. They're catching up with that Haas, who's been leading this train for a little while now, but Total Wizard still not seemingly having the pace to outrun these guys, but certainly control the train.
I think all of these drivers are being extremely patient. They're waiting for that dry weather. They know it's coming. I think what they want to do right now is keep themselves in the best possible position they can until that dry weather comes out, and then it's going to be the Wild West. You and I have seen it before. Think back, of course, CFR, Coda, where we saw changeable conditions. As soon as those clouds lifted and the sunshine came beaming down on that Austin, Texas circuit, those drivers were doing some crazy overtaking. They are currently stuck in a cage here in Hungary in wet conditions, and as soon as that circuit goes dry, I think we're going to see a serious change of dynamic.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that race up, because not only did you see them all be released, as you put it there, into overtaking conditions, as Freeware on the inside of Total Wizard, a little bit wheel to wheel out of the penultimate turn. Total Wizard's going to defend up the inside into the final corner. It doesn't look like he's got the pace, and the AlphaTauri makes the move as Kana swings out. Did he hit the wall, or did he manage to avoid it there?
He is very fortunate. He managed to keep that McLaren out of the wall there. We had it on the rear view from Freeware as Luchtra got by into 7th position, I believe, on that turn as well. So Total Wizard and Luchtra now going to be doing battle. Freeware finally out ahead, looking to catch up with Hyper. Total Wizard seems to be struggling. He is on 2-lap older intermediate compound tires.
But going back to what we were just talking about there, we did also see in that US Grand Prix, Ben Bear, obviously he's not racing here this evening, he was here last weekend, but he made a huge strategic blunder where Jeff suggested that he made the pit stop, and he did. 3 laps later, it was time to pit again, out of the intermediates and onto the slick compound tires. So these drivers who are getting to what we think might start to become the end of their intermediate tyres lifespans are really going to want to keep that in the back of their mind, that they don't want to switch off just before the conditions are about to switch back to where they need to pit again. And the yellow flag in Sector 2, that's the Alfa Romeo of Robbo. He's off after turn 4, sorry. No damage that I can see, so I think he's just run wide, maybe spun there. As Freeware and Hyper now into turn 1. Hyper up the inside. Freeware seems to have got a better run out of this first corner, and he's still side by side into turn 2, but it looks like the AlphaTauri has got the exit he needs to confirm his position there. And Robbo again causing yet another yellow flag, but he's still moving
along. For all of you in
there.
the chat, keep note, lap 36, Freeware, 31.5 seconds away from Yoda. That gap, I can guarantee you now, wet weather or not, older tires or not, is going to continue to shrink. Freeware has been showing great pace in this race. Hungary, one of the trickier overtaking circuits, of course, even more so in the conditions we're seeing here, is, well, he's going to begin to fly.
Yeah, Freeware is someone who's, ever since this game released, man, he's just been so competitive on the pace, and he's just someone I've constantly seen being at the top of any race he's been a part of. So he's definitely a threat for any of these drivers who are maybe around him at the moment, they've just all had the experience in this train freeware, just coming straight back through the positions. But now, also, the likes of Yoda and Nigel are going to have to watch their backs too. And like you said, he's definitely going to try and crush that time down to as close as he can get.
Kana just ever so carefully along the outside of Luktra into turn 1, looking for a move, was quite close, not able to pull the trigger. Luktra was extremely fortunate he didn't lose that rear on the Mercedes. Coming out of that final turn, heading into lap 37 here, we saw a little bit of a slip. Now, what caused that slip was, you see, in F1 2020, they have the overtake option, and when you use overtake, it puts a massive amount of charge into your wheels. It gives you a little bit of added torque and acceleration in your car. So when you hit that overtake switch in the cockpit of your car coming out of a turn, you need to make sure that you've got the right amount of traction, or you're just going to spin your car. So Luktra, very close to losing the car there. He was maybe just a little too early on the overtake button there.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing. People haven't had.
Speaking of Luktra, excuse me, he goes up the inside of Total Wizard in the third last turn going into the penultimate turn. He goes up the inside of Total Wizard. He gets the move done into 6th position. He goes. Meanwhile, Total Wizard under threat. That's Kana looking at his inside in the McLaren now through the final turn of the circuit. A little bit of wheel banging here. Total Wizard keeps it in 7th for now. He's defended for the time being. Is Kana going to have an opportunity to make another run in turn 1? He looks inside, jumps back behind the rear of that Ferrari, and now he taps him on the rear. So he slides out a little bit. Fortunately, Kana not having to worry about anyone behind him at the moment. But Total Wizard keeping it in 7th for now, but now he definitely knows that he has to worry about that McLaren. Meanwhile, Hyper now has a Mercedes to worry about, as we saw Luktra get ahead of Total Wizard last lap round. Coming through turn 4 here, where we saw Hyper have a bit of an issue with Total Wizard earlier on that exit, where you said, of course, that chain reaction was caused through the midfield. Luktra very close through this chicane in Sector 2.
Yeah, Luktra is really flying at the moment. And I think what we're seeing here is not only Lutra's pace, we saw him qualify high up the grid, but also his tyres. They're only 14 laps old compared to everyone else's around him, who are mostly just over 20 laps old. The nearest person without tyres over 20 laps old is Gadwin, and he's 7 seconds away, as Luktra now looking to presumably replicate what he did last lap. You can see Hyper getting a little bit sideways out of the penultimate turn.
Keep an eye on that telemetry. Watch Luktra here. Let's see when he flicks on overtake. Gets the car straight, overtake comes on. That is what he didn't do last time around. But you can see when he applies that throttle, even without that overtake on, the car is so quick to react, and it just wants to leave, so he has to correct the steering there. If he is able to nail down that final turn heading down the pit straight, he will nail Hyper into turn 1. He will absolutely get a clean move done. He just needs a good exit.
Yeah, and what I was saying before this all kicked off, the overtake button is a new mechanic this year, and it's not something that people are are completely accustomed to. Obviously, everyone's getting very much more familiar with it over this week compared to last, as it looks like Luktra trying to have a cheeky peek up the inside into the chicane on the Haas, but the exit is much better on the outside, and he's done it. He's got Hyper in somewhere I don't think either of us would have expected him to make the move there at all.
Yeah, and Hyper, I don't know if he dropped back because he felt that it wasn't clean. I don't know if his defense was super neat and tidy. I didn't really see it too well. Meanwhile, Total Wizard has come back into DRS range of Hyper. So Hyper has lost out to Luktra and put himself under threat from the Ferrari. Luktra himself has pulled out a second on the Haas as well. So Luktra now, after what has been a very unique race for him, he is looking good.
Yeah, he's had his ups and downs for sure here this evening. One thing we haven't really touched on, obviously Shenjie right now 12 seconds clear of Nigel, but Nigel has Yoda all up in his rear view mirrors right now. nothing really in terms of battling from the pair of them so far, but they've remained close despite the fact that we're 40 laps into this race. So an excellent display of pace from the pair of them up there. Like I said, no real battling to report on at the moment, but just thought I'd bring it to everyone's attention that these two are within a second of each other. So when DRS gets re-enabled and we switch back to slicks, I would expect that we see these two exchanging positions a little bit more than they are at the moment.
I think right now is a perfect time to start talking about tire life, Unicorn, because you can see Shenjay, Nigel, and Yoda all on 25-lap-old intermediate compound tires, and I do believe that is the correct number for a change today. Do we see them jump off those inters this old? I don't know what kind of longevity they are getting out of these intermediate compounds in a 100%er. To be fair, it's the first 100%er I've seen with intermediate compound tires used here in F1 2020, and I have to say I don't think I knew in F1 2019 either. Yoda super close to Nigel in this fight for second position. He has been for some time, just been sticking with that Alfa Romeo.
Kane has just made the move on Total Wizard in the penultimate turn, and Total Wizard really not looking like he's got the pace in this wet conditions. He was leading the train, he's now pretty much at the back. It wasn't too dramatic, but he just doesn't seem to have control of that Ferrari in the wet in terms of sheer pace. He hasn't been making any slides or anything, but maybe he's just not got that confidence in the wet conditions yet that he needs to push a car to its limits under these, types of conditions. But going back to your previous question about the rain, it's still coming down here, and we've already seen Lutra just tear through this mid-pack, and he's already pulling out a very sizable gap. Freeware, unlike what we thought, isn't really catching Yoda at all on these old tyres.
Yeah.
Whereas Lutra, he is gaining some time to the car in front. So I think we are seeing these tyres get to the end of their life cycle, at least the end of their fast life cycle. Maybe you can continue going on them for however many laps, but it's not going to be fast, as Kana makes a big lock-up up the inside of the Haas of Hyper into turn 12, not somewhere we're used to seeing. But he's got the switchback, a little bit of contact between the two, and he's lost an end plate there to the Haas.
And who is there to pick up the crumbs? No pun intended, of course, with the end plate, but that is Total Wizard, like you said, struggling, but yet still in the battle, able to take positions where he can get them. Now 27 laps old on those intermediate tires. He is, along with Max Inkster, on the oldest tires currently in the running. Max Inkster, of course, he has only pitted once, contrary to what I said earlier, and what the timing tower did tell me, because one of those drives through the pit lane, of course, was that drive-through penalty that we saw him acquire earlier on under the VSC conditions. So he is in 13th position on 27-lap old intermediate compound tires. And now, something that's going to be very interesting is if these drivers stick it out on these intermediate compound tires past 30 laps, or is the rain going to subside before then? And that is the big gamble that we're seeing unfold right now.
So I think for Lutra, the decision is pretty much set in stone. His tyres are 9 laps younger than some of the people we've already seen on intermediate tyres, so we know he's got at least 9 laps, which would take him to lap 52 here, which I would think would be enough for him to be able to definitely at least consider not switching tyres. Whereas everyone else, the likes of Shenjay, I think we probably will see a tyre change. The rain's not stopped at the moment, and he's got a 13.5-second gap to Nigel as well. And we're seeing Lutra with better pace on the younger tyres. Shenjay could really force some people's hands here, because if he pits, he'd probably come out just behind Nigel and Yoda, I would think. 14 seconds or so between them. He'd definitely come out in third, but he'd be on those fresher tyres, he'd be lapping faster, and I think we've got at least 10 laps or so left of these conditions, so I think it's definitely worth Shenjay considering the move to the second set of intermediates here.
Now, we were talking earlier about the difference in the fresher inters versus the older inters. Gadwin in the past 2 laps has made up a 2.5-second gap on Total Wizard, and he is now in 9th. Ooh, as he just loses it. I don't know if you saw it, but I certainly did. Gadwin almost going into the outside wall of turn 5, just ahead of the chicane here in Hungary. Manages to get things under control and manages to keep that front left plate, end plate, intact. So very fortunate for him. He has lost a little bit of time, but he can gain that back, no worries. As I was saying, his tires are showing a lot more speed than Total Wizard's right now.
Unfortunately, I didn't see it, but what I have been watching is Yoda steadily close the gap to Nigel in front. He's just about halved it, and now he's right on the tile.
Wheel to wheel with Hyper in the final turn. Hyper's still out in front.
McLaren looking up the inside, and he's made a mistake into turn 1. That's going to cost him potentially to Total Wizard. It has indeed, and also Gadwin in the Red Bull. So kind of they're losing 2 positions into turn 1.
For a moment there, I didn't realize Gadwin had already made it through on the McLaren. Was looking left and rear there on the camera, but he has, which is very good for him. As we saw, he was extremely close to Total Wizard. Total Wizard and Hyper are going to be losing a lot of time to this Red Bull driver in the midfield right now, because those tires are a full 10 laps newer. And it looks like we have a yellow flag in sectors 1 and 2 there. It was the Renault of Wavy, who appeared to have gone off. Looks like they are back going well once again.
Yeah, and again, Yoda's still just stuck to the rear bumper of Nigel like glue, but he's not. They were weaving down the start finish straight. Yoda just staying behind the Alfa Romeo of Nigel, but Yoda just seemingly doesn't want to risk it, but he's definitely putting pressure on Nigel. Nigel just needs to stay calm and composed and not make any mistakes. They're going to let that Red Bull through, although Yoda does look like he took back a little bit. Obviously, Total Wizard, he's engaged overtake, as have the 2 rivals either side of him, but are we going to see him move into turn 1? The Ferrari there up the inside into turn 1. He's caused that ass to go very wide and very squiggly, but a lot of exit speed from the number 20 Haas in the form of Hyper as they go side by side through turn 2, and Hyper very valiantly defends his position, but again wide through turn 3, and he loses the position not only to Total Wizard, but Gadwin squeezes through around the outside of turn 4. Meanwhile, while that's happening, I believe Wavy just picked up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But Hyper there looks like he's starting to struggle on those old intermediates, and we've just seen Gadwin utilise his younger rubber and just squeeze through there with what can only be described as one of the bravest moves I've seen here this evening.
Definitely brave to try and slide yourself in between 2 fighting cars in a dry race. Suicidal in a wet race, as far as I'm concerned, but he managed to get it through into 7th position. And now it looks as though he may have an opportunity for a run on Total Wizard coming out of the final turn. He is going to have a good run with the overtake in the slipstream of that Ferrari. He is on the fresher rubber, but I don't know if he's close enough. He's looking at the inside. He jumps back behind the optimal racing line of that Ferrari, and perhaps we could see it into turn 2. But he needs to get a little bit closer to that Ferrari, and I think he needs to have a much cleaner exit in order to make something happen between Total Wizard. Total Wizard showing great defensive driving in these conditions on the older tires, that is for certain. Meanwhile, as we were seeing unfold earlier, Lutra has now caught up with freeware on the fresher rubber, as well as Yoda doing a good job there, sticking with Nigel in that fight for 2nd position.
Yeah, I was going to say that Lutra had just crushed that gap down. He's back on the rear of freeware. Obviously, it's too late for freeware to pit, but in order to save his position here, but it doesn't look like it's raining as heavily. In fact, I'm not even. Oh, it is still raining here, but it doesn't look like it's raining as heavily. So we might start to see an end to these conditions. So Lutra is definitely perfectly poised to switch back onto the slicks in terms of the age of his tyres, as he looks to get a switch back out of the exit of turn 1, but he's not going to be able to make that move. But it is utterly astonishing that 31 laps on the intermediates for the guys up at the front. Obviously they're still battling it out, and they're just battling it out amongst each other. But Lutra, he could threaten them towards the end of this soft stint. Obviously right now, 34 seconds behind. He's not going to be able to make the move, but he's definitely going to have to put them under threat.
Shenjie has increased his gap on Nigel by a substantial amount as well. He's now up to 15 seconds ahead. 32 lap old intermediate compound tires. Quite impressive from the AlphaTauri. His teammate Freeware under threat from a much fresher rubbered up Lutra. And I did throw that in there for the replay, just for all of you wondering, because I'm sure Lutra will get a good kick out of it. But of course, Gadwin now, still with Total Wizard. Hyper has dropped off of them, and Fubar is right behind Hyper, as well as Liam in the mix as well. Liam in the points, in 10th position.
Again, I think Hyper's suffering. We've said it so many times, but it is just these tyres, and obviously we don't know what's going on in terms of the longevity of a pair of Inters in this game. And, you know, a lot of these drivers, they won't have done a full 100% race around Hungary in the wet, and it looks like Fubar is coming into the pits. He's only on 14 lap old intermediates though.
It looks like there's no more rain in the pit lane right now. Could it be
Those are mediums.
This has begun the dry switching. So, Fubar is the first to blink on grid into the pit lane for the mediums, ahead of all of the drivers on the grid at the moment. This could be huge for the German in the Mercedes.
So now you think, how does everyone else react? Obviously, Shenjie right now has a huge lead. He can afford another lap on those intermediates. But you've got things... Oh, and Fubar very sidewards. Has he actually spun the car? He has. So it is not time for slick tyres yet.
Copy that. Not time for wets. Or not time for dries. Not time for dries. Copy. Copy. That's everybody thinking that right now if they're listening to this broadcast. Lutra in P5 right now will be absolutely flying in these conditions right now, given his tires are just so much younger. Liam as well has a great advantage. His tires are even younger than Lutra's. As we jump on board with him, he is looking at Hyper already for P8. And I think he just may get it into turn 1 here. Gadwin on Total Wizard. There are little battles all over the circuit right now. Hyper has blinked. He is going into the pit lane to get onto some dry compound tires. You can still see on the tires of Gadwin coming down into turn 1 right now, there is still a significant amount of spray popping off of those tires, which is an indicator that there is still a good amount of wet, well, not wet water conditions, but just water on the circuit. So, Lutra, is he going to be able to capitalize and get ahead of Freeware well on these intermediate compound tires, or is he going to have to stick behind Freeware on the same tire life compound tires? That is the question, because overtaking him in the wet with fresher compound tires is an entirely different situation.
So I'm going to throw another piece of strategy here in the mix. Right now we have about 20 laps remaining. We're seeing Fubar struggle in the mediums right now. We're right at the change at Kana as well. He's just slid out the pit lane as well on those fresh softs. If you're someone like Shenjie, what I would think would be ideal for you, stay out for 2, maybe 3 more laps, and go on to another set of softs. Although, I don't think, actually saying that, I don't think Shenjie can, because, although just wet changes, because he hasn't used a pair of, he's only used softs apart from these inters, but I think intermediates count, right, as another set of tyre choice.
Looks like there was a bit of an issue. Might have been lag there between Liam and I want to say Hyper? Not entirely sure what happened there on screen. I don't know who that was, but Liam in 6th position. Maybe it was Gadwin. I think it might have been Gadwin. I'm not entirely sure, but that was very weird what I saw on screen there. And there is a retirement. It's Fubar. And I have seen him retire here in Hungary before. I just hope it's not the same turn. Who is coming through that section of circuit right now? Is that Yoda and Lutra? It is.
Fubar, yeah.
You hate to see that. Oh my, Fubar is going to be either really upset.
And Yoda, he's just spun it as well. He's stopped there. He's got a 5-second penalty for it. Nigel obviously thinking he was at fault. I hate to interrupt there, but the two just came together.
Not entirely sure where they are on circuit right now. It looks like it was just coming into turn 1 maybe that they got it together. Nigel has the unfortunate rev bug, so going on board with him is an absolute nightmare. But yeah, Yoda into 2nd position. Very interesting. We have a full-blown safety car. So, this has just made things extremely spicy. We're going to see all of our front runners pit more than likely. And, well, that's going to just shake up the grid.
The thing is now, question is, do you go for softs? You should just be able to get them to the end, but it's not a safe bet. Or do you go for mediums? You'll definitely get to the end, but you'll be slower right out of the gate. And then the other thing is here, I just want to point out, Max has just received yet another drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. That's his 3rd of the evening. Obviously, he's just coming to the pits for a fresh set of mediums right now. So he'll have to serve that after the safety car ends. But we are seeing pretty much everyone here come on to the slick tyres. In fact, we are seeing everyone. So the inters are over. We are now back to the dry conditions. And we're also been blessed with the safety car to bunch everyone back up again. So not only is overtaking more realistic, overtaking is now very much on the cards, given that everyone's going to be bunched together by a safety car.
Not only that, but this is going to give these drivers a little bit of a pressure lift, if you will, because I've just seen Yoda take a stop-go penalty in the pit lane, which you can serve under safety car. But drive-through penalties, I don't believe you can. So Yoda is going to come out in 3rd position on those medium compound tires. Lutra is already out on the softs. So, well, it's a very interesting grid right now. You got to keep in mind that on the timing tower, half of the grid has been lapped in this race. Shenjie is your race leader, Nigel in 2nd, Yoda 3rd, Lutra is in 4th, but has quite a good amount of time to catch up to get himself back into this race, and he has gone on the soft compound tires. Freeware, who has had a very, very dynamic race, is back into 5th position on the mediums. Liam is in 6th on fresh soft compound tires. Total Wizard is onto fresh soft compound tires as well. Don't believe what the timing tower is telling you. He put those tires on 2 laps ago on lap 50. Gadwin is on to fresh softs as well. Hyper in 9th position, 1 lap mediums. Kana, fresh softs. Wavy, fresh softs. Robbo, 2 lap old mediums. And Max Inkster has opted to jump onto another fresh set of tires, and it looks like Gadwin is coming in. Not too sure what the Finn is doing over there at Red Bull. Could be getting onto a set of mediums. Could be taking this opportunity under safety car to correct a previous mistake. Liam is staying out for the time being, I think, as he comes through turn 5. So yes, he is going to be staying out. I only imagine these drivers have to do what they can to catch up to that queue. Of course, for Lutra and Freeware and Liam, perhaps it will be quite easy, even Total Wizard. But for these lap drivers, they're not going to have that opportunity. So Gadwin's taking what he can get for the time being. Hopefully they get enough pace to pull them out in front into a position where they can unlap themselves. But I don't believe if Swifty down there in 19th who was unfortunately DSQ'd earlier in this race, if he's anything to go by, these drivers will not be able to unlap themselves under safety car conditions.
So while we're under safety car, I've just taken the liberty of having a look at the penalty situation, and someone who looks very strong at this moment in time is Lutra. He does have a warning to his name, but both cars in front of him have 5-second penalties to their name, and Freeware behind him has 15 seconds worth of penalties. I don't know, obviously you just saw Yoda serve a 5-second stop go, so I don't know whether that 5-second penalty for Yoda has been cleared. It doesn't say, unfortunately, under the race director, but it is possible that Lutra has a 5-second advantage on the two drivers ahead of him just based on penalties alone. Not only that, he's on soft tyres compared to their medium tyres as well, so Lutra is going to look very strong on the restart. Shenjie also clear of penalties, so he's also in a very, very good position to start, or restart, sorry, this race from. But the safety car is going around for at least one lap, and if we're going to wait for, I believe that's Total Wizard, who's all the way, it is, back, still in Sector 2 just about. Probably have to go for at least one more lap around. Yeah, and Total Wizard could be a little bit
I think he might get
restricted.
He might get caught, I think he might get caught not catching the safety car here. Liam's going to catch it. But Total Wizard, it's going to be tight.
And the only thing is, even if he does catch it, with the back markers not being able to clear themselves, he's going to be stuck behind them all. Whereas everyone else is going to have clear air. So, although saying that, Lutra, I said he was in a good position. He's actually got what looks like a Renault and a McLaren, so that's Kana and Wavy in between him and Yoda. So they'll probably get blue flagged instantaneously upon restart, but they're going to be battling one another. So they're not going to want to let Lutra pass as soon as Lutra would probably like them to.
It's just crazy. 7 of these drivers now on the start are going to be, well, the entire grid. Make no mistake, what you're seeing on our timing tower and what's actually happening on circuit, you can see is a very different picture because of those back marking drivers from Hyper down through into Max Inkster, the 2 Haas drivers, if you will. The Haas back marker sandwich, let's coin that one for the race. They are currently in amongst your top 7 racers who have not yet been lapped and are not going to ghost. So they are going to have blue flags, of course, but they will need to be overtaken as you would have to overtake any other car. Now, as the safety car is coming in, Shenjie is the de facto safety car. He is away, coming through the final turn into lap 55. He has gotten a great restart here, and he has been quite good at doing that.
So Lutra up the inside, he's looking at the Renault of Wavy. Obviously this is just lapping the Renault, who he just got caught behind. The blue flags are being waved, and it looks like he's now on the tail of Yoda. Yoda's managed to lose the position to Kana, who's unlapped himself from the Red Bull, and that puts Yoda and Lutra almost side by side for turn 4 as Lutra gets a Renault to the rear bumper. Luckily, it's not unsettled his car, and he's able to soldier on, but some very close racing. Hyper receives a 5-second penalty for ignoring a blue flag, so the stewards are messing around when it comes to the blue flags. We're only half a lap in past the safety car, so those back markers better be careful about who they don't let pass, because otherwise they could suffer significant repercussions.
Of course, Hyper is very close to the race leaders at the moment. That's Nigel and Shenjie. He would love to unlap himself. Shenjie has absolutely flown off of this restart, though, making it virtually impossible for him to do so. And if he continues to sit in and amongst this traffic, those penalties are going to continue to come to the point of DSQ. Now, he looked at the inside of Yoda for a moment there, jumped back behind the rear of the Red Bull. Meanwhile, Hyper has now been overtaken by Kana, who did manage to unlap himself. He was definitely not waiting around to do so for that because, well, it's going to be extremely difficult to do so in the remainder of this race. And there goes Hyper now. He's crashed. Lutra has driven over his front wing. Hyper has flown out of turn 3 onto that inside wall there on the left. You can see Robbo having to slow down, and we have another safety car deployed here on lap 56. So now what's going to happen with tires, because this has now just been the safety car restart. We did 1 lap of racing, and now Hyper has gone into the inside wall of turn 4. So
this has just fallen into Max's hands.
This is huge. This is huge. Well, if he's able to unlap himself, I don't know if he has that ability.
So, well, he's at least going to be able to catch everyone back up. He's just served his 3rd drive-through penalty of the race. And now he's getting the opportunity to rejoin the pack, whereas if this safety car hadn't have occurred, Little Wizard actually comes into the pits. Taking advantage of the safety car, but is he actually taking advantage? Or is he just going to drop him back to the rear of the pack? He's joined by Robbo there in the Alfa Romeo.
Well, for those of you that have tuned in for this race from the start of quali to this point, we salute you. It has been a very interesting race, to say the least, and if tomorrow's race is going to be anything like it, I am excited. Of course, if you're new, my name is Strifium. Joining me today from the UK is Unicorn, and I would greatly appreciate it if all of you could do us a lovely favor and hit that follow button, as next week, and when I say next week, I mean this coming Thursday, we are going to be starting our Season 3 of Misfits Racing League action. We have 2 tiers, so you're going to see 2 different races go down. Both races 50% in distance with some very, very competitive racing. It's definitely going to be something to see. I am, I'm extremely excited for it. If these 100%ers that we've had in F1 2020 are anything to go by, and it's like we were saying earlier in Quali Unicorn, the racing has, it's gotten to be, in my opinion, a lot tighter.
For sure, like 2020 has just been, everyone just seems to have gravitated towards it. Everyone's picked it up so quickly, and from the start, as Nigel hops into the pits, he's joined by Liam, sorry. While we were just talking about the league there, these two just popped into the pits for some soft tyres, even though Liam's already on them. Interesting decision by them. But yeah, going back to Thursday, it's definitely going to be very exciting, because obviously, 5-second penalty for the freeware. Obviously, these 100% races are in very impressive spectacle. It shows just how good drivers are at being consistent and everything, but it'll be very exciting to see these drivers once there are points on the line and a drivers' championship to be gained. Obviously, there are still points on the line for these races, but you want to be an MRL champion, don't you? If you're one of these drivers, once it's a championship, it's no longer an exhibition race, it's a constant grid. That's when it gets spicy for them, doesn't it?
It is, for sure. It is a 22-race season-long grudge match between 20 drivers. Of course, we have 40 drivers across 2 different grids. We have Tier 1 and Tier 2, and something that we're introducing this season that we did not see last season, and I'm not even sure if you knew this, Unicorn, and this is maybe a little bit of information for those of you that are in the dark about this next MRL season. We are going to be seeing a combined Constructors' Championship, meaning that each team will, in fact, have 4 racers, 2 placed in each division, and the points scored by those drivers over the course of the season driving for their respective teams will contribute to 1 points total. So, that is something very interesting to take into account.
To answer your question, I was not aware of such a thing. Shenjay just received a 5-second penalty. This puts Lutra in very good stead. Has he not picked up a penalty, he might still stand a chance at winning this race and might be one of the only people who will be able to bring the race to Shenjay as the race gets underway. Freeway has just been disqualified from the session for ignoring a drive-through penalty, and that's caused the Red Bull of Gadwin to smack into the back of that AlphaTauri.
No, you do not want to see that at all. There is another yellow flag in Sector 1. Freeware just got disqualified for ignoring a drive-through penalty. That is absolutely terrible for the AlphaTauri driver after 58 laps in this race. To be sent out of it like that is the last thing you want to see, and even worse off for Gadwin, if I may say, as a result, being claimed as collateral damage. Not good for these two at all. Absolutely heartbreaking. As we're on lap 59, Lutra looking to secure second position from the Red Bull of Yoda. Of course, Yoda, we saw earlier, Shenjay took a 5-second penalty, so Yoda in prime position if he can stick within 5 seconds of that AlphaTauri through the next 10 laps of racing.
And the blue flag is still being waved here. Shenjay's just at the fast lap, 117 dead, as the Renault of Wavy lets both Liam and Nigel past as they're running down towards turn 1. And Nigel looking around the outside of Liam, but he might get the switchback actually. He's got a much better run through the corner than the Williams. And he's got a better exit as well, but he's around the outside into turn 2. Can he hold on? He's got the inside line to the next corner, and a masterful piece of driving from the Alfa Romeo puts him ahead, but he's not carried the speed through the corner that Liam has in that Williams. And into turn 4, the Williams stays ahead, but again, Nigel with a better exit, side by side for the last 5 corners now. Around the outside, he's not going to be able to carry the speed. I don't think he needs to get ahead by the chicane, although they've gone side by side into it yet again. And it looks like Nigel has come out on top for a battle that lasted pretty much half a lap there, as Liam comes out a little bit wide through turn 10.
Very nicely done. Meanwhile, Lutra out in front of the Red Bull of Yoda on those soft compound tires. I don't know how this is going to go for him in that Mercedes with those softs, Unicorn. They may run off for him by the time that he really needs the pace in them here, because Yoda, by the end of this race, I think he's going to have a little bit more pace. Now, DRS has been enabled after the safety car restart, so that's going to play a role for these racers as well that are within 1 second of the drivers ahead. Liam needs to stay within DRS of Nigel, and so far he has not been able to do so. Meanwhile, Kana and Max Inkster trading positions. That's Max Inkster into 8th position on the 9-lap-old medium compound tires.
Yeah, Kana seems to be getting a little impatient. He nearly ended his race twice there, trying to battle Max Inkster there. First of all, he got a much better exit out of the last turn, but then they went side by side, and he just spun his car. He managed to save it on the grass, but he nearly ended it there. And then out of turn 1, again, he seemed a little bit shaky. So I think he just needs to be a little bit more patient. And the yellow flag in sector 2, who's that for?
Not entirely sure who that's
Wavy. He's lost his front left end plate, and he's gone very wide through turn 11. I don't know what caused that. Shenjay, though.
Ooh, Kana into the rear of Max Inkster. He's lost his front left end plate. Max Inkster has been spun around. That's going to be Robbo through both of them. Wavy is even into 9th position. Max Inkster looking to charge back now. Not entirely sure if he took any damage there, as he may have come into the inside wall. Doesn't look like he has, so he's still going to maintain his performance in that Haas. Maybe a little bit of tire wear on those mediums. Yoda still sticking with Lutra quite well here. It looks like the DRS may have helped him into turn 1, as he is still within half a second of the Mercedes ahead.
Yeah, Lutra needs to be careful here. He's obviously not going to want to give the position to Yoda, but at the same time, Shenjay is setting fastest lap after fastest lap on those medium tyres, and Lucha doesn't want to be battling with Yoda when he might be able to take advantage of Shenjay's 5-second penalty. Whether or not he's going to have to stay within that 5-second time frame is looking quite unlikely at the moment for the Mercedes driver. Shenjay is absolutely flying around this track. He seems to have really found his mojo, but Yoda, he's just got DRS on the Mercedes. Lucha really making him work for that slipstream though. As they come into turn 1, we've already seen Yoda play it quite safe throughout the wet period. As Lucha spins out of turn 2, he's managed to not DNF the car, but he's completely lost his front wing.
No.
That's a safety car.
No way. There's another safety car deployed, and that could be his saving grace here as well, because he's going to have an opportunity to get into the pit lane for a fresh wing, get some fresh tires if he's got any left, and come out in a fighting position if he's able to keep himself behind the safety car queue. Unbelievable. 4 safety cars. Is that not right? 4 full safety cars here in this 100% race around the Hungaroring.
I think it might be 3 full safety cars. We've definitely had a couple of VSCs as well in the mix. I'm not sure if it's 3 or 4 safety cars, but judging by the race director, Lucha should have another set of soft tires, depending on how many he used in qualifying.
Freeware coming through in the chat. 4 full and 2 VSC by his count. So I think that's it for the safety cars. I think the safety car is going to be completely out of gas at the end of its current run, and hopefully that will be it here. As we're on lap 64 right now, Shenjay is into the pit lane. He's serving a stop-go penalty, so he's serving that 5 seconds we saw him acquire earlier on Unicorn. He's going to come out. Where is he going to come out is the big question, as there is not going to be a lot of green flag racing. I think we might even see DRS for maybe 2-3 laps at most.
Yeah, there's not going to be a lot of... because we're going to have to wait a couple of laps. So, yeah, I think it's going to be about two laps of DRS. But Shenjay, he's in 4th, he's on fresh softs, and he was absolutely flying on the medium compound tyres. Everyone else ahead of him, well, Nigel and Liam are on 5-lap-old softs, and Yoda's on 11-lap-old mediums. Yoda not pitting might cost him here.
I think that if the safety car doesn't come in at the end of this lap, you're going to see the 3 remaining front runners jump into the pit lane for fresh tires, because if I'm being honest from experience, I know I've had this happen to me in Baku, being on a little bit of older soft compound rubber. These guys on those fresh tires are going to be flying, especially here around the Hungaroring.
I mean, Shenjay was setting faster laps than them on mediums, so to be honest, I don't think they've really got to worry about fighting him. I think he's going to just fly past at some point.
Total Wizard, though, and Lutra, those, I think, are the 2 drivers here in this situation that they need to be worrying about. Shenjay, in my mind, he's going to zip himself into at least 2nd or 1st position. No offense to the guys running ahead of him, but they are on the older rubber. And that is going to be Liam now, jumping into the pit lane.
So, looking at penalties, let's see, does it get rid of 5 seconds? It doesn't, so even if someone serves a 5-second penalty, it remains on the race director, so I can't tell whether penalties are served, unserved, etc.
Of course.
Which is a little bit unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, Yoda, currently leading this race, is going to have to put on a serious display of defensive driving, as he only has 2... Well, he has Nigel behind him on the 6-lap old quicker rubber, if you will, the soft compound tires. Shenjay on fresh, Total Wizard on fresh, Lutra on fresh, Liam. He has now gone on to an older set of soft compound tires. I do believe it's the set he started this race on that he has now switched to. This has just been a crazy race. You know, we started with 20 racers here. We are down to 9, and I can't say I've been disappointed. It's been a very unique and dynamic race. The weather played such a large role, And a lot of these incidents didn't really come down to any, driver battles. It was just, I think, getting accustomed to the conditions. It's Hungary after all, turn 4, claiming a few drivers.
Yeah, and like you said, there's nothing to be disappointed about here. A lot of the time when you get such a huge amount of DNFs, obviously right now we're sitting at 11, you'd think that would
There's the call.
Throw all battles out of the window, but we haven't had a lack of action despite the fact that we've got now a lack of drivers. Obviously, you could call a few of the disqualifications like Swifty and Samus, which we don't know what they got disqualified for. A little bit disappointing, but it's still a learning process in this game as we get ready for the 4th safety car restart here. This time being led by Yoda, though.
That's right, it is the Red Bull of Yoda. He is away now. That safety car has come into the pit lane and crossed the start-finish line in that pit lane, and Yoda has had an absolute monster restart here. He's already a second and a half up.
Shenjay make a move on Nigel pretty much instantly. I don't know whether Nigel didn't want to challenge him for the position, but they were side by side around the final turn. Obviously, Yoda chose to go pretty early, a lot earlier than we saw Shenjay restart the race. But he really, really just stuck it to Nigel. He was up the inside, ready and raring to go. As soon as that call was made, he was gone. Meanwhile, further down the grid, Wavy gets past Robbo, sorry.
Lutra battling now and looking to hunt down Total Wizard here.
Liam spins out of turn 5. He resets the track fairly quickly though, no drama for him, but going to cost him some time.
Not what he wanted to do, I'm sure, with a safety car restart handed to him like that. Lutra is trying to make the most of it right now. I think we're going to see some moves on Total Wizard here in just a few turns' time. We've seen Lutra on the inside of this penultimate turn a few times try to make moves, but Total Wizard's covering him off well there. Lutra with a good jolt of traction around the outside, not able to make it all the way around though. What's the exit going to be out of the final turn? Total Wizard across the line now into lap 67. Lutra gaining less than 2/10 is the time into turn 1. Not enough of a gap though to commit to any kind of turn. Shenjay gaining on Yoda right now. We saw Yoda have a fantastic start, but Nigel, if I'm being honest, completely hung Yoda out to dry for the AlphaTauri. Because it is now fresh softs versus these older mediums, and you can just see the pace coming out of that Honda engine right now coming through the chicane.
Yeah, and then you got Shenjay. He's just gone and set a 1:15.8. And that was on the restart, so I expect this lap to be a little bit faster, I would think. And then DRS is probably going to be enabled by the end of this lap. So we should see that come into play. Probably not next lap, because the DRS detection zone is before the first zone, which is before the start-finish line. So like we said, I think we're only going to see a couple of laps of it here. But there it is, there's the notification.
Shenjay might get lucky with it heading into turn 1. Coming out of turn 1, I mean, into... Yeah, see, they don't give it to them until it's been enabled for a full lap, I don't think so. Now that it's been enabled, we'll see some overtaking, I'm sure, coming down into lap 69. Meanwhile, Lutra sticking with Total Wizard here very well.
This is the interesting thing about this circuit in particular. Those two DRS straights being so close together, I think they both utilize the same DRS detection zone, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think there's a second one, as Wavy looking around the outside of Max.
There's a big jolt of lag coming out of that Ferrari. Lutra almost goes straight into the rear of him, and you can see now Lutra has gotten out ahead of the Ferrari here on your timing tower and on screen. It looks like Total Wizard now struggling with some connection issues. That may have been the case the entire time. It looks like Lutra may have gotten an illegal overtake as a result. So Total Wizard back into 4th position now. Meanwhile, Yoda still keeping Shenjay at bay, but that's going to be Shenjay with DRS Yoda trying to break the slipstream out from that AlphaTauri. It's a Honda versus Honda battle. Yoda covers off the inside here. Shenjay looking for a switchback. Yoda covering well. Shenjay with the DRS down into turn 2. Is he going to be able to make it up the inside? He goes for the dive. Big lockup on the front left there. They're wheel to wheel now coming out of turn 2. Into turn 3 we go. Is Shenjay out in front of that Red Bull? Yes. Yes, he is. Here on lap 69, the penultimate lap of this 100%er on the Hungarian circuit, the Hungaroring. But Yoda slides out of turn 5. Nigel is into second position. It doesn't look like he's taken too much damage on that front right. He takes a penalty, though, trying to get back on circuit and get things underway. He is missing a good amount of that front right wing. So now, for the remaining lap and a half he has in this race, he has to defend against Luktra with major damage, and it doesn't look like it's going to go well for him. Luktra is now into third position. Looks like Wizard on the inside now. He gets ahead of Yoda, and that is the last thing you want to happen in such a long, hard-fought race from the Red Bull. That one little mistake cost him a good chunk of points here.
Yeah, you got to feel for someone at this point. You've gone through so much here. You know, you've battled through the change of conditions. We saw Yoda fighting all the way with Nigel through those wet conditions, and all to just go and make a little mistake there. I mean, it's not called an endurance series for nothing. Like, this is a long and taxing process to sit through a race like this, and man, he's gonna kick himself for that one after this. I am very sure of that one.
Yoda now coming out of the pit lane. He put on some fresh softs, a fresh wing, just to make his last lap around the Hungaroring, his cool down lap, if you will, a little bit more enjoyable, I'm sure, as Max Inkster is far too long gone to catch up with the Red Bull at this point in time. You can see there on your track map on the right hand side of your screen, Yoda is pretty well clear air throughout his last lap of this race. Meanwhile, Shenjay now coming through Sector 3 is about to take the checkered flag. He has had a very consistent drive today and has led this race pretty well through the entire 70 laps here. Crossing that final turn now, his celebratory weave. He crosses to take the checkered flag here in Hungary. It's Shenjay with the race win. Nigel crosses second position. Luktra crosses third. Total Wizard now fourth position. Liam in the Williams crossing the line. He will finish fifth here in this one. Yoda now entering Sector 3, as we saw just a few moments ago, coming out of the pit lane. He will come home in sixth position. Max Inkster, after having been lapped here in this one, takes seventh. Robbo in eighth. Wavy in ninth. And Yoda, the last driver here to cross the line in Hungary after a superlative drive and just an unfortunate mistake near the end there. He will finish in sixth. But what a race. Dry, wet, dry, 4 full safety cars, 2 VSCs, and, well, a multitude of retirements combined with driver error, collision, and, of course, my personal favorite, Codemasters. So, that was a very eventful race. Unicorn, what do you think?
I don't even know where to begin to start talking about that race. It's just so much constantly going on. We've seen it every single time we've done this so far, that you just get these pockets of drivers that are constantly battling around the circuit. We had Yoda and Nigel throughout the entire wet period. We had Luktra. What a redemption arc for him. You know, he was doing so well in qualifying. He crashed out at the end, and then he dropped significantly in the race, but he still managed to go from fifth on the grid to third. So for me, I think he's had an excellent race. Obviously, Shenjay as well, he did brilliantly. Then you've got Kana, who dropped all the way from first on the grid, and he did not finish. I mean, he's the last driver to DNF, so he still picks up a point, but there was just so much going on throughout that race, all these retirements. And like you said, none of them were disappointing retire. You know, it wasn't a, oh, that was a bad crash. They were all just...
And there's the final race time, just for those of you that are curious, from Shenjay, of course, the race winner. 108 minutes. That's crazy. 108 minutes. 1 second, 0.764. Of course, Shenjay with the race win. Nigel second, Luke third. That is your podium. Wizard in fourth after a huge climb from 13th. Liam from 11th to 5th, the Canadian driver. Great stuff from him. Yoda started in 6th, had a fantastic drive at the front of this grid, finishes in 6th after a very unfortunate mistake on the penultimate lap. Max Inkster in 7th, Robbo in 8th, Wavy in 9th, and Kana from Finland in the McLaren, rounding off your top 10. And you saw Gadwin there, the other Finn driver here in this one, who had a very unfortunate end to his race. Extremely heartbreaking stuff, at least from my perspective, after watching him climb again and again throughout that grid. I am just extremely excited with how the race went. It was a very unique race. I could have done myself with a few more finishers. Maybe some of the guys I wanted to see in the points there, like Henners and Zamis, who had very unfortunate race ends. But that is going to wrap it up for us in Hungary. Just absolutely craziness. Just want to give a quick shout out as well to Mr. A2K for the tier 1 subscription. We greatly appreciate all of your support. To everybody who follows the channel, supports us on our league races. You guys are the reason we put these races on. You guys and the drivers participating, that is what we're all about, and we are just here to watch some crazy wheel-to-wheel battling action on a sport we all love, and that is Formula 1. Of course, Unicorn was with me today in the commentary. My name is Strifium. And that is going to wrap it up for us today. However, just before we go, if you haven't followed the channel already, make sure you do so, because this Thursday, Unicorn, we are commentating at 3:15 CDT / 9:15 PM BST. This coming Thursday, it is going to be the first round of MRL racing action in the new game F1 2020 Season 3. That is when your Tier 2 action starts. It'll be Unicorn and I once again in the commentary booth. And then following that race at 5:15 CDT and 11:15 BST, we have, of course, the Tier 1 race. It is going to be a 22 race season. We are kicking things off the way this season should have started here in 2020 for the F1 drivers. We're going to Albert Park. It is the Australian Grand Prix. But any last words for the cast there, Unicorn, before we head off for the evening?
I just think it's going to be very exciting come Thursday to see how, because in a 50% race, you've got to be a little bit more aggressive to try and get your moves done. You've got half the laps available to you, so, and obviously tyre strategy is a little bit different, so I think it's just well worth sticking around to see how that one pans out come later in the week. But once again, a very enjoyable race. Thank you for having me along with you for the journey, but yeah, it's just been a blast, as always.
All right, sounds good, and it is always a blast to commentate with you as well, Unicorn, and it is always a blast to commentate for all of you guys who viewed us today in the chat. Like I said before, it's you guys that we're all about here. Now, we are going to head on over and raid a member of the MRL community. I think it's going to be Freeware, who we saw have a very unfortunate race end. I'm going to have that all sorted out for you in just a moment. One thing to note is if you are looking to join a league, or perhaps jump in with, just a fun community to be a part of, hit up our Discord, because we're always looking for new drivers, friends, and people to race with. So the link is in the description there. Just give me a few moments. I'm going to get a host set up for everybody and give everybody a nice... give Mr. Freeware a nice raid. So head on over there, say hello to Freeware. Thank you, everybody, once again for watching this evening's cast. It has been so much fun, and I'm going to send you off in style. And you might see a bit of deja vu for Mr. Fubar in this video as well. Thanks a lot, guys, and we will see you next time. Red lights on here in Baku, and the lights are out. But CJ Virtual on the inside of Juicebox into turn 2 now. He is leading this race, and that's Jay next to him going down into turn 3. He's out in front right now. Is he going to get the move done out of the restart here? It looks like he is. Oh, and it's Fubar off. No, you hate to see it. There goes the Mercedes. We were on board with him as he was catching up. Oh, he's going round the outside around the Carnagon, and now that's Extreme in the Ferrari on the inside. The Ferrari fans don't want to see it, but that's the Toro Rosso getting out in front of the Ferrari down into the second chicane. Holy
there is looking down the inside of Alex into 130R. It leaves him a whole lot of space. No contact, but it will be Alex Vitto holding that position for now.
Oh, and there's a big spin!
Alex! Alex is off! I think it's a close up. Actually, no, I look goes full Daniel Ricciardo style. What a dive from the Renault from the switchback from Zanis.